is going on, everyone? I'm Devin Uglin, and I'm joined by my co-host Ronnie Flores, and this is the Ballislife original show, On the Rise. On today's episode, we're taking a closer look at Gonzaga's sophomore forward, Drew Timme, one of the more skilled players in all of college basketball. Ronnie, take us through the rundown of his high school career.
Yeah, Devin, with Drew Timme, his high school career wasn't the typical high school career you see of somebody that we've been talking about so far on the rise in terms of just a natural, top 10 prospect and then a top 10 NBA draft prospect. It's such an explosive conversation when we talk about Drew Timme and such a big range of what people think he's capable of and his potential. So he wasn't a tier one prospect as an underclassman. And that's, I think, the same thing as we talk about later on this show of what his NBA draft potential is we're going to divulge into. According to our Texas sources, he was always a top 7 to 10 player in his class, played for pro skills, and then he really blew up as a rising senior on the EYBL circuit, Drive Nation. As a senior, he was rewarded for that play. He played in the McDonald's All-American game, and he played in the Ballislife All-American game. Obviously, our Texas guys really knew how good he was. He was a player that was very photogenic. He was good on video, a kid you wanted to watch. And he was pretty productive in high school, but again, he wasn't on the top tier of players in his class in 219, but he did earn all district MVP honors. And obviously he's doing well in his 2 years at Gonzaga.
Perfect, Ronnie. Yeah, let's jump into the strengths of Drew Timme real quick. I'll start. And I think, like I said in the intro, he's one of the more skilled players in college basketball. You can't take that away from him, from his face-up ability, touch around the basket with either hand, back to the basket, creativity where you can, get guys to bite on shot fakes, go up and under and finish. He does well, using the rim to protect against rim protectors, right? So, he's not the most athletic or most explosive guy, but his craftiness with his ball skills and his shot fakes and pass fakes and ability to kind of use the basket to shield himself from rim protectors and allow him to finish at a high rate. And Ronnie, he's up in the mid 60% from the field, during his sophomore year at Gonzaga. So that shows that even though, and again, he's only shooting, 0.7 attempts from three. So that shows even though he has a lack of vertical explosiveness, that he still can finish around the basket and in the paint, despite that. And, I like him as a pick and pop kind of guy. I think he needs to, we'll get into this later, but I think he needs to be more consistent from three. But I think pick and pop from, 15 to 17 feet, I think he has that. And I think pick and pop, and then, on that mismatch, overpowering smaller defenders and, backing them down into the post and finishing off the glass, he can do that because he's so skilled. And then, in transition, he runs the floor hard. He, establishes early post position. He seals well. He gets guys on his backside and, gives a big target for entry passes. And then in ball screen action, his footwork, his hands, his IQ, those all come to light in that ball screen action because he screens well, rolls to the basket well. He has great hands and he can finish in tight quarters. He can catch a bad pass and make something out of it. And then he's a great high-low passer. He draws, double teams on the post, finds open shooters. And in the high post, he can, throw a post entry pass as good as a guard. And Ronnie, I think, ball skills wise and IQ wise, he's a guy who can play that point forward role where he can rebound and push. He can be a guy, if there's a press break needed, he can be a guy who handles that. It's kind of similar to what Evan Mobley does for USC. He can handle a press break and initiate offense. And I like him in that trail role on a fast break, being the guy who trails the play at the top of the key, catch, swing, go set a screen off the ball and get the offense. And, for Timme, it's all about IQ. He's 6'10", 235, got a big body. But he also has, his footwork is really good. He's light on his feet, even though he looks like he's heavy on his feet. And then again, just creativity in the paint with shot fakes, up and unders, and touch with either hand off the glass or off the rim. Really, he kind of has that whole Euro style big man package that we see kind of prevalent in the NBA right now, and being able to be a guy who's effective even though he's not athletic. Let's go into your strengths, Ronnie.
Yeah, Devin, as far as my strengths go, I keep going back to the efficiency and sticking to his strengths. Those are the things I see. Again, it's kind of a whole volume or production of what you said with all the details of his game.
Sure.
And I'm just thinking of the higher line portions of his game. Even when he came off the bench last season as a freshman, he still went for double figures in 16 of his 33 games. So I like the efficiency. He doesn't take up a lot of volume. He shot 62% from the field then, and this season even better, over 65%. And he's shooting more, and he's more of a focal point of defense. So I like that. He's obviously expanded his game or got more comfortable. He's obviously in a great position with Gonzaga, but there's a reason for that. I think the other thing I like is small things that make a difference. Again, me and you, Devin, especially you like the versatility and you like the skill regardless of athleticism and length and things like that. I like those small things in terms of terrific teammates and bringing out other players' game. I just think his production to volume ratio just makes it easy to see why, there's a reason why Gonzaga's undefeated. Again, maybe it could be a little bit of his the opponents they're playing, and we'll get into that when we talk about weaknesses. But there's a reason why Gonzaga's undefeated. Look at his numbers, 7.3 rebounds, pretty good assist to turnover ratio, averaging 18.9 points. And I mean, how many bad shots he's taken? Obviously, I'm looking at the film. I've seen a couple games. I haven't seen really one bad shot. So he understands spacing and knows how to move well. As you mentioned, he's really good with Suggs and Andrew Nembhard moving. And I think that will be even, something that an NBA team can use when he gets there. They're going to say, hey, wow, this guy can do a lot of different things. And like you said, if he can show that he can extend his range and shoot a little more from the outside, as you said, as a trail man, face up, beat his guy, going left or right, top of the key, or you got to show he could hit that three to keep them honest. Because like you said, he's not going to be, finishing over guys the same way he is now. But that may not matter if he finds his role and goes to the right optimal position and to the location like he is now in college. It was a great pick for him to go to Gonzaga.
Yeah, I agree. Gonzaga kind of fits what he does offensively with IQ wise, moving the ball, kind of a fluid offense and floor spacing. And that floor spacing is just going to get even more, more obvious at the NBA level, because that's what it's all about is sure. Floor spacers opening the game up and, opening driving lanes. And I think Timmy's a guy who will be able to stretch the floor, not with just shooting, but with passing, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like what Draymond Green does a little bit, with his just IQ, toughness, knack to make things happen and intangibles. That's what I like most about Timmy. Two things: versatility and intangibles. Ronnie, let's move into the weaknesses. I'm going to let you start this one off. Let me know your weaknesses for Drew Timme.
Yeah, Devin, as far as the weaknesses, I want to take it back to high school. Pierce High School, Richardson, Texas. Again, our guy Brad, knew all about him, would always tell us about him. And again, he was on people's radar, but he wasn't on the national radar. So I'm looking at his rankings, Devin. 247 has him 57. Rivals had him 36. ESPN had him 47. So obviously the national scouts didn't think he was athletic or explosive enough to be higher or make the impact he was. If you're averaging 18 points a game on an undefeated college team, the number one team in the country, you're not supposed to be ranked in those positions. So what changed? What I'm asking is what changed when he blew up, quote unquote, blew up on the EYBL? What changed? He didn't get more athletic. He didn't all of a sudden become faster and more explosive. So it's obviously some of the things you talked about and you touched upon. So I think that's the same thing is going to be the problem going into this draft, or if let's say he goes next year, but I think he should take a chance this year. Is the scouts and brass don't factor in those intangibles as much as you, Devin, and as much as me. Mm-hmm. And at what point are they going to take a risk on a player with his makeup? Maybe he doesn't have the ceiling they think, that to risk a 20 pick or 25 or end of the first round or even the high second round. What's the highest pick someone's going to be willing to take a chance on that? So I think those things that he's going to have to show to get into that high second round, maybe late first round, he's going to need to show he can stand his range and shoot it, with a little more volume. He's going to have to shoot it more. Mm-hmm. Not again, you mentioned he's not even taking a 3 a game at the college line. He simply doesn't have to do that on his Gonzaga team. And I think that's what people are going to look at closely. Looking at his highlights, he's obviously beating and outplaying a lot of WCC post players. I think many of them are not NBA players.
Sure.
Just looking at it, and he's not going to be able to go overpower or blow by some of those guys. So he's going to have to expand his offensive repertoire. I think he does. I think he does fit in. So those weaknesses are just the obvious ones, and why he was ranked where he was coming out of Pierce High School. Is the answer the questions about the athleticism. How can he make up for that? I just think nowadays people are so enamored with that they're just not going to. Some teams are just not going to take that chance. Whereas maybe me, if you were looking at him as a second rounder or late first round, we might take a deeper dive.
Yeah, I hear you, and I hear a lot of the same things coming from evaluators, whatever it may be, is he's not explosive enough. He's not athletic enough. Who's he going to guard? Can he be a rim protector at 6'10" in the NBA? Can he switch on ball screens, contain? Can he hedge and recover? Can he do all those things? Because he's not fleet of foot and he's not super, long and lanky and athletic like an Evan Mobley. And those concerns are fair. I think those are valid concerns. I think, Ronnie, if he was shooting the 3-point shot at like a 35% clip on like 3 to 4 or 5 3-pointers a game, we'd be having a completely different conversation. But
yeah, I understand what you're saying by there, but there's a reason, like you said, back to my point, there's a reason why Gonzaga's undefeated, because he's not, and he doesn't have to, and that's not a good shot for them.
I'm with you. Maybe he can shoot the 3.
Yeah.
That's just not his role at Gonzaga. And that's why they're 29-0.
Yeah.
That's why they're in the, Elite 8 heading to a potential Final Four appearance, whatever, you know what I mean? So, he's shooting 31.6% from 3 on the season at 0.7 attempts per game. If those attempts were higher, would the percent be higher? Maybe, but we don't know that. So we have to take this. I think another thing you look at, he's 6'10", 235, and he's averaging 7.2 rebounds a game. Is that because, Gonzaga makes a whole lot of shots, or is that because they have a whole lot of good rebounders? I don't know.
I mean, they're shooting as a team. They got to be shooting a high percentage, and he's shooting obviously a high percentage. Jalen Suggs is pretty efficient. Again, they have a really good team. They're not taking many bad shots, so they don't get many. Maybe they're not leading in offensive rebound efficiency and things like that. So.
Yeah, it's just, you look at all the, like we said, versatility, intangibles, skill, IQ, passing ability, scoring around the basket. The one thing that is the missing ingredient that everyone looks for is athleticism, right? Explosive, all of those things. And I think Drew Timme is one of those guys who's going to find an NBA fit because he plays so hard, because he's so smart, and because he just plays the game the right way, right?
Sure.
And I think even though he's not a freakish athlete, even though he's not a high-level shot blocker, rim protector, or, highlight reel dunk kind of guy, I still think there's a place for a guy like him in the NBA because he's so skilled, so smart, and a guy who's going to work and probably, I'm going to say he's going to shoot better than 31% from 3 in the NBA, probably be a guy who's able to develop that 3-point skill set. But yeah, right. It's a tough one. There's a lot of mixed reviews on Drew Timme and his NBA potential. And a lot of it stems from lack of athleticism and lack of explosiveness, Ronnie, or the lack of a true knockdown 3-point shooting ability. You got anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I think those 3 main things are people are going to keep talking about and talking about. And, it's going to be a broken record as he enters the NBA draft, or when he decides to take that, chance or take a look at it. Not much more to add to that other than that is the thing that people is going to keep going back to it in high school. Again, why he was ranked there and why he's ranked that way going into the NBA draft type of mock drafts and things like that. But Devin, why is he so productive and good? Why was he a McDonald's All-American? Why are we talking about him now? He's got to do something good. So, I mean, that's where I'm left at, is forget all that stuff in terms of intangibles, like in adding to like length and athleticism. If you don't have the intangibles, he's not even in this conversation. So again, we're going to see him. Gonzaga plays USC in this round of 8. And then that's the ultimate matchup that he wants, that I think people are going to really look closely at.
Yep. Drew Timme against Evan Mobley. We're really going to see how he can perform against an NBA level rim protector. Okay, Ronnie, let's jump into the comparables for Drew Timme, and we're going to do some NBA comparables. There's a lot of names on this list, Ronnie, that some people who watch this show or listen to this show aren't going to recognize. So why don't you kick it off and give us some of your names here?
Yeah, they're going to have to really dig, and that's good because if you're going to draft Drew Timme, you're going to have to dig and find what it is that you really like about him or what it is that you think he'd stick and give you 7 or 10 years, that type of player. I think, he could be a good role player, and that's what he's going to be. When you look at some of these players, I like Jared Sullinger, who went to Ohio State and made a big impact. Luke Babbitt, who went to University of Nevada. I thought he was a good comparable. And then you look at Zach Collins, maybe a little bit more explosive around the rim, a former Gonzaga guy who went to Bishop Gorman. Again, those are just guys that you see some similarities to. The guy I really would like to see if it came to fruition, and this was his ceiling, is Christian Laettner, the former Duke star. Now you say Christian Laettner, wait a minute, he's an all-time great, NCAA player. But I'm talking about the player he became in the NBA, more face up, had to show his skill a little bit more. He was able to, in college, he was able to beat guys with deceptive foot speed. Like I remember he outplayed Alonzo Mourning and Shaq because he was able to move and shoot a little bit, get skilled. People said, wow, this guy's really skilled. Mm-hmm. He's in the same situation as Drew because he had great college teammates, Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley, those type of guys. But he found his role and he was actually pretty good in the NBA. And I think that's where Drew, if he can get, 10 points, 12 points, 5 rebounds, a couple assists, that's pretty good for a late second rounder or, high late first rounder. So, meaning late in the first round. So yeah. If you look at that, I think those are fair comparables. It's not out of the realm. I mean, his skill can develop like Christian Laettner. They have similar footwork. Maybe Laettner just had that as the man. Laettner is very interesting. A lot of people didn't think he was going to be good they didn't think he was going to be that impactful at Duke. They had a lot of question marks, same as Drew Timme. He wasn't ranked in the top 10. He was a McDonald's All-American and whatnot. So it's very similar. So I think Drew Timme has a chance to prove people wrong at 2 levels, college and the NBA.
Yeah, I think your Christian Laettner comparison and that kind of ceiling is kind of where we're going with this and kind of what we agree on because Laettner had a similar skill set, right?
Yeah,
not super athletic, not super fast, but he could face the basket, go by guys, and his footwork was a spin move or his up and unders and finishing around the basket with either hand. He had those things.
Yeah,
those are tools that Drew Timme also has.
Yeah,
a guy I like, Ronnie, in my comparables, and a guy who I think NBA career wise is who Drew Timme should try to strive for is Nick Collison. I mean, he played. I mean, he was in the NBA for so long, right? 15 plus years in the NBA for Nick Collison. And he was just an intangibles guy, hard worker, rebounder, run the floor, be physical. I think those are similar traits to what Drew Timme, can provide to an NBA team. I think Drew Timme is probably a little bit more offensively skilled and offensively gifted than Nick Collison. And he can do, a little bit more things than Nick Collison offensively.
I agree with that.
As far as like how long you want to stick in the NBA and the type of role you want to have, Nick Collison is a good guy to strive for. Another guy I want to mention is Brad Miller, and I'm going to shout out our guy Daniel Soto for helping us out with some of these comparables. Brad Miller, really good passer, scored inside and out with the Kings, ended up making a really good career out of being a role guy. Started in the NBA for a long time, but a guy who was really good as a pick and pop player, a trail guy who hit threes.
And he found his role.
And he made up for a lack of explosiveness with toughness, physicality, and just kind of skill with his back to the basket. Another guy who I like who Drew kind of fits for me is Boris Deau. Similar fluidity, similar size, similar body types. And both have IQs, right? That's the key is IQ for the game, passing ability, making things happen for themselves despite a lack of athleticism or explosiveness. Deau was crafty. He was creative.
Yeah.
With pass fakes, shot fakes, back to the basket moves, but he can also step out and hit a face up, a set shot out of a pick and pop. And I think those are the areas where Drew Timme is going to be able to make his career is being a guy who can score, over mismatches in the paint with his back to the basket, screen roll, using his footwork and hands and touch around the basket to finish, and then really, really getting that pick and pop shooting ability to where he can be a threat as a guy to spread the floor. A couple other names we have here, Ronnie, we both kind of discussed. David Lee. I think David Lee might be a better rebounder than Drew Timme.
A little more athletic.
A little bit more athletic, better rebounder. Mo Wagner. And this is a real throwback Shavlik Randolph. I mean, I think similar body types, athleticism, skill sets as Shavlik Randolph had. But yeah, those are, it's an interesting comparison. It goes from, an all-time college great to a role guy in the NBA. And I think that's kind of the career arc that Drew Timme's looking at.
Yeah. Devin, I want to follow up on that and just kind of give some perspective of the guys we're talking about, and we compared to Drew Timme. Nick Collison, which is one you kind of banked on when he went to Kansas. He's from Iowa Falls. He was ranked 8, by All Star Sports and 22 by the Hoop School. We go look at the Ballislife.com database. I'm going off those numbers. That's pretty high, and that's a big range. So I think Nick Collison was closer to that number 8 range there. That as you go look at the database, Shavlik Randolph for a while in his class, he's in 2002, and obviously he was a big recruit for Duke. He was ranked closer to the top 5 guy in his class, and then he kind of leveled off. His senior people said they had some questions about how athletic, how good he could be, and he was average. He was 19 and 26. Henry Allenson, we mentioned, 23, 247, number 5 by ESPN. They thought really high of him, and Rivals number 11. And like I said, Christian Laettner wasn't ranked all that high in his class and was a great class. So, I'm looking at this and I'm going back to the Nick Collison comparison. If Drew Timme was in Nick Collison's class in 1999, over 20 years ago, I think he'd be ranked closer to 8 and 20 or 22 instead of where he was in his class. His average composites down in like the 46 range. People had him in the 50s, they had him in the 40s, so but those guys were very all good college players, especially Nick Collison and obviously Christian Laettner. Henry Allison didn't stick around that long because he got drafted pretty high, probably drafted that Drew Timme's going to be drafted, but I think Drew Timme can be more productive. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting to look at these guys where they were in high school and how that translated to where they eventually went in the draft or what type of careers they had. So, I like your Nick Collison comparison, and I do think he's even a little bit more skilled or can show a little more skills in today's game than Nick.
All right, let's move on to our future forecast for Drew Timme. Ronnie, I will start here. And the first question I have written here is Drew Timme a long-term NBA player? Yes, I think so. Because that's me. I value skill over athleticism and length. And with his passing IQ ability, his screen roll, kind of be a short roll guy who can potentially hit that 15-foot, set shot or, expose a mismatch and get to the basket and finish. I think it's all going to depend on the right fit. And I think where he's going to get drafted, in that I think it's a late first round type of situation. I think Drew Timme is going to find himself a spot on a solid contender and be a guy who can come off the bench immediately and give minutes and solid minutes, and be like a, 7-8 guy off the bench and, give a team, a solid minutes, solid production, and not make mistakes. Should he declare for the NBA draft after the season? Yeah, for sure. Because Gonzaga is likely going to be, Final Four, potential national championship level team. And I think as far as his stock goes, it probably only gets this high, right?
Correct.
The highest.
That's another question people are going to have is his ceiling.
Yeah.
What's his ceiling? You're not going to, you look at Evan Mobley and it's like, oh my God, this guy can be an NBA great, or he's going to be a very good NBA player. When you look at Drew Timme's ceiling, obviously he's not going to be the number 1 or 2 pick of the draft, but you say, well, what's his ceiling? See, so that's, you're saying like his ceiling ain't going to be higher with one more season at Gonzaga.
No, I mean, you look at his numbers this season so far through 29 undefeated games, Ronnie, it's 18.9 points, 7.2 rebounds, 2.3 assists. And like you mentioned, shooting 65.7% from the field.
Yeah.
And, you know, just a tick under 70% from the free throw line, which is solid for a 6'10" guy. You look at big men in the NBA now, I mean, you're in the low 60s, high 50s range for some of them. So those aren't bad numbers. And those are probably numbers that he'll probably peak at Gonzaga. And
correct. So when I look at him, to cut you off, is his numbers on an undefeated team or potentially undefeated team, he comes back next year, and if that shooting percentage is going to drop a little bit because he's going to have more defensive attention.
Yeah.
And then his game's going to get nitpicked, and it's not going to be much better. So I'm with you that he should go and you know, take his chances with where he may get drafted, because like you said, he's in an ideal situation, and hopefully he finds the right ideal NBA situation. So I'm with you. I think he could be a late second rounder. Maybe he might you know, sneak up into the end of the first round, but I think what he's going to give a team at that pick is going to be more than satisfactory, and he's going to have a very good chance to stick because of what we mentioned in his skill set.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for our Drew Timme episode of On the Rise. And for more On the Rise content, head to the Ballislife Podcast Network on YouTube, where you can see all of our past shows, which include breakdowns of Jalen Suggs, Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham, and other potential future NBA stars. And for other content, head to ballislife.com. Check out the Fab 50 national rankings. Check out our new Ballislife database, where you can search all of these old school players we mentioned on this show. And also head to shop.ballislife.com. Copy yourself some of the latest gear, hoodies, shirts, socks, jackets. We got everything you need at shop.ballislife.com. But until the next episode of On the Rise, Ronnie and Devin are signing off.
What's up, Ballislife fam? Thanks for watching this video. If you want to support the movement, make sure you check out the product listing below this video and cop some of this merch.